It's the month of February 14th. For some, this is a special day for some. For some, it's just another day. But, the tradition is all up to the families, you know. Um, whichever way you go, there's always something that you like to share with someone very, very close, um, through just talking or around their space, or the Western world you give like chocolate, and in the traditional world, it's a gift of I guess support and protection, and giving and providing. So um, I'm going to do the cultural reverence this morning, and we have Dustin as our professional development teacher. And we
Morning.
also have a presenter, Dr. Teehee, a professor from Utah State University. She's going to um, give some information on some of the projects, a project that she's been working on with a group of American Indian teachers in general, and the tribe. And I guess she'll explain a little bit more when we get to her piece. Of course, I'm trying to get Clayton to update us on the language in a government class,
Kind of,
and
yeah.
he's pretty busy. So if he's on today, that's fine. But if not, hopefully he'll give me that information in terms of the progress of both, especially that government class that's coming up really, really soon. And of course, we have the Urban Indian Center, which is a focal point for a lot of for the families and stuff. And then we'll adjourn for the day, and that's going to be our agenda today. So let me start by just saying a prayer. Ihe Hans Hanso Kagi Asi Bahans and the She Kia Anish Ledo Teslani Bashis Chin Hatagani Shanela Tapash Chekodadinen Slow. That's just kind of an introduction of who I am, where I'm coming from, and my clan system. And I'm going to say this prayer in English so everybody could understand. And I think whichever way we go, the prayer ends up in the same place where we like to have that prayer go. So, Father, this day, the Heavenly Father, we pray this morning to acknowledge that the land that we're on, of the native people, that they were once caretakers and they're steward of this land, but today it takes another avenue where we still have that connection with our spirits and the land that we stand and work on. We thank you for the moisture that you send us, with all the moisture, and of course, it comes with the other elements, such as being cold and sometimes wet and sometimes uncomfortable. But this comes with a calling of that moisture. We also thank you for the positions that we hold. We have a household that we have a position as a provider, as a supporter, and as a person that protects and leads and to help the family along the way. We also thank you for the schools that are provided for us, the learning institutions. Um, we thank you for those teachers, the mentors, the community, the families, and most important, the students. And the Title VI program is basically an avenue where we support the Title VI American Indian Alaska Native students. And through the visions that the coordinators have, that will all materialize, you'll come to fruition. We also pray for those needed resources that we ask for. And through your eyes, that you see that some of the avenues that we go down, there's some struggles. And help us with those struggles. Have your spirit to guide and direct us, and to give us that strength to open those opportunities for our students. We today we thank you for the professional development speaker, Dustin. We thank you also for the presenter, Dr. T, and those individuals that like to share and express their thoughts. We thank thee for all of that and all those blessings that you provided for us. We're very, very thankful for that. Protect our families and our schools and our surroundings and where we go and where we teach and associate with our colleagues. May it be all professional and may it be very, very beneficial for everyone. And there's a lot of other blessings that we are needful of this day, that those blessings that may be bestowed upon us, we pray this day in the morning of February 14th be not additionally though. This I pray in Jesus' name, amen. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing and Dustin, I guess you're going to take us on from here.
All right, let me see what I can do. I can pull this off. Um, it's always an adventure for me. Can you all see the sign? I mean, my sign, my slide.
Yeah, we can see. Yeah,
Oh, all
it's
right, it's working. It's working.
yeah.
All right. So, I thank you for that prayer for and and for bringing us here together. I really appreciate coming out here and sharing a few thoughts and at least trying to do my part in helping our youth that are in our school system uh, do well and succeed. And I think a large part of that experience of that success comes from teachers and educators like you all here that are taking the time to do this and chose to do this as your living and part of your life. Um, I wanted to share a little bit about the uranium transfer that's happening uh, from Pinon Mine, just a little south of Grand Canyon to up towards the uranium mill at White Mesa Community, or just south of Blanding here in Utah. And I know there's a lot of people that are concerned about this, and I thought it'd be nice if we just understood why there was a concern over these things. And so I put together just a small PowerPoint just to share some thoughts and share some information with everyone. This isn't an endorsement of uranium mining or the transport of uranium mining. This is just info that I've gathered, and just to bring us all up to date. And maybe there's a time when you all can just look into it a little more to answer the questions you might have. But in the 1950s, this is when we really started in the U.S. to mine uranium. And I think a lot of times when people think of the 1950s, they think of like Elvis or Jackie Robinson. But for a lot of people that at least served in World War II, this was the 1950s were the beginning, or the obvious beginning of a Cold War between the United States and Russia. There's it seemed like overnight we had a race of who can develop their nuclear potential first. And it sparked a lot of mining, at least in the United States here in the Southwest. And there was a lot of economic opportunity that came with this mining, but sometimes it came with irresponsible mining practices and loose regulations that led to some very bad environmental impacts, particularly on water resources and sources. And uh, and just because of geography and where tribes are located, and where reservations are located, especially in the Southwest, a lot of Indian lands are sitting right on top of large quantities of uranium. So at least in the 40s and 50s, all the way up to the 80s, I think Navajo people and people in northern Arizona, northern New Mexico, and the southeast corner of Utah, they've all been experiencing the effects of uranium mining, and among their families, whether it be through cancer or even or just the death of people. But it seemed to have played a huge part on limiting tribal access to other resources. Um, and it's in some cases it has actually gone to the water supplies back then. But what we're seeing now, after the uranium mining stopped for a while, we're seeing that there's hundreds and hundreds of abandoned uranium mines throughout the Navajo Nation. I think it's depending on who you ask. I when I was at Navajo Nation, we asked the EPA there. They thought there was like 545 open mines. I just read a I read a news article that said there was at least 900 open mines uh, down there. And the person at EPA, it wasn't Stephen City, but they had an attorney there working for them at Navajo Nation EPA, and he had worked with uranium cleanup down in Florida back in the 80s when he first started working with uranium. And he said Florida had a uranium pond that was 27 meters across, and it was really difficult to clean that up and get it, make the place safe for people to go through and things. And I asked him, I said, how long does it take to clean up a pond? And he goes, well, that 27-meter pond took us 25 years to clean up. And this was in 2012. And so when I asked him that question, so hopefully cleanup procedures have changed and gotten better over the days and over the years. But in his estimation, he was like, none of us are going to see all the uranium cleaned up on Navajo Nation in our lifetime. This isn't a 100-year goal. He goes, this is hundreds of years of cleanup that we have to do. And so he was very concerned about more uranium mining and that. So the hope is that they bettered that cleanup process, and that they can make things safe again. Because I myself had grew up down there, had a lot of friends that I think were exposed to that, and are suffering health consequences because of it. Something to look at. How did it start? Who even came up with this idea about how to process uranium? But it actually happened really early in 1938, when German scientists figured out that splitting the uranium atom would release a lot of energy, and this new source of energy was so powerful it could power cities. But we used it to power nuclear weapons, right? And we used it a as a threat and as a weapon that we advertised to others to leave us alone, because we could make nuclear weapons with this. Um, and we stockpiled millions of tons of uranium in the United States, so that we could fuel atomic research and development, and mining operations just sprung up everywhere. Uh, and the need, with the Cold War threats really brewing and heating up, it really heated up the need for more uranium, and thousands of mines were abandoned. Mining companies um, walked away from old sites when people stopped mining uranium, and it caused a lot of widespread sickness. There was heavy metals in water, chemical toxicities that related to it. Um, Even exposure through drinking water or eating it, he didn't know, right? Because a lot of mine workers ended up being native people, and these native people, they weren't really educated on. Hey, if you all could turn off your mics, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Um, they there were there the mining the economic development of uranium mining was huge, and hundreds and hundreds of Navajos, Pueblos, Apaches, all in this area. They all in the Four Corners area. They all started working in these uranium mines, and they weren't being educated about what they were touching, what they were handling. These guys weren't wearing like protective suits or anything. Some of them had hard hats, right? Because they're digging holes and going into places, but They didn't have anything covering their mouths. They didn't have anything, protecting them from the air they breathed. And, as a result, there was a lot of problems as it dealt with bone growth, kidney failure, um, and cancer, fertility problems, early deaths. All these things were big were big problems that we found out that came from mining. Because these miners weren't educated, they were just coming home covered in yellow dust, yellow uranium dust, and they'd go home. They'd hug their kids, they'd hug their wives. They would just, and a lot of these men at this time were still living in traditional homes, one room homes, hogans, and they would walk in and just take off their work clothes, lay down with their family, right? And then put those same clothes back on and go back to work. And they didn't realize that they were contaminating their households, their children, and their wives because of this. Uh, I found an article that said there's 160,000 abandoned mines throughout Western U.S. And, and so it's a big deal. It's not one of these things that say, oh, you want to mine uranium. Well, just be careful over there in that one site. We as a country haven't been careful with uranium ever. And so it's a new thing for us and new concerns for us. And a lot of old school people are still wondering, is it really that bad? And we're like, yeah, it is that bad. It hurt a lot of people. And so we need to be educated on this and what we can do. If you look here, you can see the abandoned uranium sites and mines. And some of these dots represent 4 or 5 places. Okay. But look at, it's huge. I look at Shiprock. And if you can see Shiprock right there, let me see if I can move my mouse over there. Okay, in this area, where you can see my cursor, there's Shiprock, New Mexico right there. I had 8 really good friends there that I grew up with, and all of them have some sort of cancer. One of my best friends in high school, he played for Shiprock. His name was Nathan Claw. At the same time, I was playing for Tohatchee just down the road. When we were in college at BYU together, I mean, he was a good athlete. He was Sac and Fox and Navajo, and he was a fantastic football player, quarterback. He was on scholarship to BYU as a quarterback, and in basketball he was amazing, and he was just an all-around really good guy. And when we were in doing our undergrad, our studies at BYU, he got married, and just like within a year he passed away because of a rare form of leukemia, cancer in these areas. I lived in Tohatchee, so I was just down the road about 85 miles south of so down about right here. And I went to prom with a girl in Shiprock. And my senior year, she was really fast, and I didn't see her race in the state track meet my senior year. And afterwards, after her graduation, we were talking, and I asked her, hey, I didn't see you run at state, or did you get injured, or what happened? And same thing, they found cancer in her, and she had to get some things removed uh, to to make sure it was dealt with and things. And so, and I when I speak with people around here in this area where, in White Mesa or Blanding and these areas over here, you're they have those concerns. They have those same stories about their families and friends, and so it's a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, you know, there's a big reason though why people in the early days really really took part in this as minors. We it was jobs, it was economic opportunity, and people, they wanted different ways to support their families and support them in ways that provided substantial monetary compensation, so they could provide food and send their kids to school and things like that. So it was a big deal. And between 1944 and 1986, they mined about 4 million tons of uranium just on Navajo Nation alone, right? Hundreds of mines were popping up all over the place. and thousands of Navajo Nation members. They wanted work, and they wanted to be a part of that, and they put themselves in harm's way by doing so. And you got to remember too, in the late 40s, early 50s, there weren't a lot of Navajo people that spoke very good English or understood English very well. And if you're trying to find words, if Clayton's on, maybe he knows the word. But back in the day, they said, we didn't know how to explain radiation to people. We didn't have the word for people getting sick by exposure to these things, and that these things are emitting um, harmful materials at you, and that would get you sick. And so, language, being isolated from most people and living in this area. I mean, New Mexico and Arizona, they're still pretty rural areas in those areas. And so there wasn't a lot of knowledge about dangers of this uranium exposure, but not just to their health, but also to their environment. So there was a lot of unknowns here that really affected the people in the Four Corners area. You look at this. This is White Mesa Mill, uh, and it's about 3 miles away from White Mesa Community, which is a Mountain Ute community on the Utah side of their reservation, and it's just south of Blanding, Utah, too. And it's the only uranium processing mill in the United States right now. It's sitting right there. And so when people start mining uranium again, there's only one place to go. And what people are worried about, it seems like the one place to go is always near native communities, and they don't know if this is by accident or on purpose, right? If you purposely pick out places away from non-Indian communities so you can put uh, uh, these types of facilities in Indian communities, thinking it's so rural that no one's there, but we live all over the place in that area. And so it's kind of sad that they did that. But until the 70s, uranium was picked up through open air pits, and mining companies would pull rocks containing uranium from the ground and then crush them into like a powdered dust, and then a liquid solution separated that uranium from other matters in the rock. And so that's how they extracted the uranium that they're looking for out of the soil and the land. And that scrap material is then stored in open air pits called tailing ponds. And if you look down there, that's what those dark areas are. They're tailing ponds, and they mix it with different chemicals and other heavy metals, arsenic, mercury, and it can cause some serious health problems. And tailings include about 85% of the uranium's radioactivity. Okay, so that's a big deal. Tailing ponds and other mining practices, they have a definite impact on surrounding water sources and surrounding land and wildlife. And when the idea of working with White Mesa Mill again and bringing uranium up again, the Ute Mountain Ute tribe came up, and they're like, hey, we're really concerned about this because that mill is sitting right above our aquifer. That's our water resources right under that, and we're getting nervous about these things, and we'd like, if you could shut that place down, we'd feel very secure about it. Otherwise, we need a new source of water, for our area, because they're really concerned about that. When they put those tailings in these ponds, they're supposed to be covered, I think, by 18 inches or a foot of water. And if you look at the bottom two ponds, you can see exposed dirt. That's the whole thing's supposed to be covered with water. If you look at the darker spot more on top, that one's completely filled. These two on the bottom right here, they have no water on them. At least 25% of each of these ponds isn't even covered. So the Ute Mountain Utes have a lot of concerns about that. Also, because when they're not covered with water, they can get picked up by wind, and this dust can get blown around and things, And like I said, White Mesa is only about 3 or 4 miles. White Mesa community is only about 3 or 4 miles from the White Mesa Mill. So that's scary for people that live down there. Um, Major leaks, spills happened quite a bit in the early days in the 70s, right? Like when a tailing pond burst in 1979, 93 million gallons of tailing liquid poured into the Puerto River. And in 2015, there's another one. Let me see if I can pull this up. A spill released nearly 3 million gallons of toxic waste into the San Juan River and across Navajo land, right? All in all, uranium mining has has contributed to the contamination of about 40% of the western US headwaters. Water sources that nearly every Native American relies on for drinking, for farming, for cultural practices. You know, they're they're this exposure is real, and it has a big effect on people. Just on the Navajo people, when we look at things, let me see if I can shrink this up a little bit so people can see it. This over here. All right, so you know, nearly a third of Navajo members have high levels of uranium in their urine, and cancers are widespread. Um, uh, I when I was at Utah Valley University or Utah Valley State College at the time, I had a chance to 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 run with the cross country team, and Chuck Foster was one of our coaches there, and we had a couple runners out of Shiprock High School on that team. And one of those guys, his name was Jason Benali. And one night, those guys from Shiprock, they went out, and when they were getting back in the car, uh, Jason wasn't all the way in his car, and his foot was still out of the car. And so when they drove, he let his foot drag, and the back tire kind of hit the back of his foot, and it broke his foot. And so they took him to the hospital. And when they took him to the hospital, it was found out that he actually had bone cancer. And he wouldn't have found that out if he didn't get his foot run over by that car. And he was from Shiprock. And so it was really felt bad for him, when he figured that out. Uh, uh, there's uh, there's one disease that's so common among Navajo people that it's named after him. They call it Navajo neuropathy. It's a peripheral nervous disease that's associated with mothers drinking contaminated water during pregnancy. And this disease affects children almost exclusively. But the average life expectancy of a child born with Navajo neuropathy is just about 10 years. Can you imagine that? I got two sons that are 12. I can't imagine, them only living to 10 and not experiencing what life had to offer them. And so that's really scary. But more than just the health impacts, they Navajo people, and I'll include Ute Mountain Ute in this area. They suffer ongoing water crisis because water's limited in those areas. And I was reading this article. It says Navajo are 67 times more likely than other Americans to live without running water or a toilet, right? So waters and water lines are very they're not as common as other places. In 2017, it said 54,000 Navajos had no access to clean water sources at home. So they go to nearby cities, or they go to these wells that are out in the middle of nowhere where people haul water. Uh, and for some people, picking up fresh water and bringing it home is like 50 miles each way, and so it gets expensive too. And then if it gets too expensive, you're just using the water by you, and sometimes that water isn't always the cleanest. So we got to be careful with that. But to try to help with this, the federal government removed thousands of cubic yards of mining waste since 2008. And there was a Radiation Exposure Compensation Act of 1990 that helps people that it helps provide government funded in-home care to hundreds of Navajo people affected by uranium contamination exposure. Um, The Navajo EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has also identified sites with the highest levels of radiation in close proximity to humans, and they marked those and prioritized them for early cleanup. And so far, they've closed off and cleared contaminated soil from dozens of sites, but the process will take decades and maybe hundreds of years and millions of additional dollars to pay for it. And so, even if we wanted to clean these places up, it's really expensive to do so. So we have to find ways to make sure that we can clean these up. Um, and 600,000 natives, they still live within 6 miles of an abandoned mine. Can you imagine that? That's wild that we can even say that, you know. Let's see if I can do my slide. So this latest thing that's going on, what you've been hearing in the news is Energy Fuels. They want to bring in, if you look down on the bottom here, they want to bring in uranium uh, to White Mesa Mill up here. So they want to get into Pinon Mine, go all the way down this road, and come all the way up, right through the middle of Navajo Nation, up into White Mesa. Ute Mountain Ute doesn't want it to happen, and Navajo Nation, again, they have huge concerns about doing that. I don't know if you all have driven on roads through the Navajo Nation, but it's not like they're wide interstates. They're not straight interstates, 4-lane roads. Across. These are 2-lane roads, one lane going each direction, and some of these roads are pretty windy, and you know and there's a lot that could happen in there, and that's the concern in Navajo Nation. You know, the mortality rate on Navajo Nation is pretty high, and there's this thought out there and this belief out there that the mortality rate on Navajo Nation is so high because everyone's alcoholics and everyone's dying from DUI out here. But the reality is this: the Navajo Nation is so rural and lacks so much infrastructure in these areas, uh, that it just makes things hard. If you got hurt out here and you needed an ambulance to come get you, you're probably waiting a couple hours depending on where you're at for an ambulance. So you're not only waiting 2 hours for the ambulance to get you, hopefully you're in good enough shape to survive the 2-hour ride back to a hospital where you can get the help you need. So it's concerning for people out there. There's not a lot of support and public service out here in case something bad happens, and that's Navajo Nation's point, was that something bad can always happen here. Ute Mountain Ute, something bad can always happen here. Nothing's 100% safe, and so they wanted to make sure that everything was as safe as it could be if they couldn't stop it, right? These are federal highways. These are federal highways running through here. And the state of Arizona, the state of Utah, Navajo Nation, we don't have a lot of control over these federal highways. And so we get nervous about whether these trucks are compliant with all these federal laws in the transportation of uranium. Because where are they having that check? Where are they stopping these trucks to say, hey, are you in compliance with all the regulations you need? Sometimes, like, south of St. George, there's like way stations. There's way stations just outside of Monticello, um, and whatnot. But there's not a way station right here like at Mexican Water. There's no one right here or down here saying, hey, let's check your truck real fast. Let's make sure everything's done correctly. So those are also concerns of Navajo Nation. Let me see if I can do this. So I'm guessing you all heard that Navajo Nation and Energy Fuels got into it, last, early or midsummer, and when Energy Fuels tried to transfer, or yeah, to transfer or transport uranium across the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation wasn't going to have it. They weren't really sure of how safe it was and what they could do to keep things protected. And so Navajo Nation and Energy Fuels spent, the last 6, 8 months trying to work something out. I think a Navajo Nation could have done it. They would have stopped it altogether. But because there are federal highways and federal regulations, they didn't have a whole lot. They didn't have a whole lot of ammunition to make it stop. And the states of Arizona and Utah also couldn't make it stop. And so they all Arizona and Utah could do was just really encourage Energy Fuels and Navajo Nation to speak with one another. And Energy Fuels at the beginning wasn't they weren't very they weren't very interested in talking these things out. But they, to their credit, they picked up a liaison to help them, to consult with them and teach them how to do it. um, and Lieutenant Governor Henderson and the Arizona governor, they just really laid into Energy Fuels and said, hey, we need you to do some type of consultation with the tribe, because this is a big deal. Even though they're on the Navajo Nation and they're Navajo Nation citizens, they're also Utah citizens. They're also Arizona citizens, and we care about them and we worry about them. We want them to be taken care of and be safe. So these are some of the things that Energy Fuels and Navajo Nation negotiated. And so they limited the transportation to specific routes and certain hours of the day. They wanted to make sure this transportation wasn't happening on busy roads or the busiest roads. And they wanted to make sure that it was at a time when there wasn't a lot of traffic on the road. Um, and they asked that there be no transporting of uranium during Navajo celebrations, or if there's big public events that are taking place in those areas. They're specifying emergency response procedures and reporting requirements, and they're making those available to Navajo Nation to make sure they're aware that if X, Y, or Z happens, these are the procedures we're going to follow. They're looking into accountability more, so it made Energy Fuels take out more insurance and bump up their insurance requirements. They wanted to make sure that the people transporting, the drivers of this uranium, um, were qualified, and that you gave them additional training so that they really understand the importance of maintaining speed on these Navajo Nation roads, and the importance of not taking turns too fast and things. I mean, this is rock that they're hauling, but it's still hauling a load can be difficult. And if you ever pulled a horse trailer, a camp trailer, things like that, it's difficult sometimes when the wind blows and things. And if you've ever seen fuel trucks, like these big semi trucks that are pulling fuel, these guys, when they're driving, if there's a lot of turns on that road, that fuel sloshes back and forth inside these big fuel tanks, and just that sloshing back and forth can flip these trucks over. And so, Navajo Nation had some legitimate concerns about that transportation. Navajo Nation, said, "Hey, you need to get licensed through us. Also, we're a government. We have certain requirements. If things might cause harm to our land, we need to be aware of it, and we need you to sign and agree to things in this uh, in the way you transport things. So they're requiring new licenses. Um, they they want more than just a canvas cover on these truck beds. They want more. They want the best the best covers that are available to be on these truck beds, so we're not spreading uranium dust all over, or you're not something that makes it easier to maintain or gather these rocks if they were ever to dump over and drop. um, they asked that the Navajo Nation be allowed to escort um, these trucks sometimes. They ask that you allow Navajo Nation uh, to to pray in their own way, to ensure that not that we're just doing everything we can as human beings, but we're asking for Creator's help in this, and protection in this at these pass. And they added inspection procedures, just to make sure that Navajo Nation feels comfortable with things, and uh, that they understand these things. Something from Energy Fuels their director, he said the Navajo Nation has suffered long-standing impacts of uranium mining conducted during the Cold War era, resulting in numerous abandoned mine and mill sites on their lands. This has understandably caused mistrust toward the U.S. government and energy companies. Says, I am personally honored that the Navajo Nation is willing to work with us in good faith to address their concerns and ensure that uranium ore transportation through the Navajo Nation will be done safely and respectfully. And this is for Energy Fuels to come out and recognize these things was it spoke a lot towards Navajo Nation leadership. For a lot of times you'll get a government or big companies that won't even acknowledge that it was dangerous. They wouldn't even acknowledge that there was harm suffered through this industry. And so for them to have that acknowledgement, and it meant a lot to Navajo Nation leadership, and encouraged them to come and be a part of this agreement. Stephen Etzity, who's the director of Navajo Nation EPA, he made the following comments. Says, we have a settlement agreement that will allow the Navajo Nation to monitor, inspect the haul trucks, and that provides financial compensation for the expenses to improve safety and protect the environment. The Navajo Nation appreciates the support from Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, who facilitated the pause in transport activities, which helped the Navajo Nation and Energy Fuels, conduct their negotiations. What does that mean? Well, Energy Fuels, they agreed to transport as much as 10,000 tons of uranium bearing cleanup materials from abandoned mines within the Navajo Nation. And they would pay for it, right? That was Lieutenant Governor's big sell on them, not sell, big comment towards Energy Fuels. Energy Fuels came up and spoke to the state of Utah and was like, hey, can you help us do this? And Lieutenant Governor is like, it's going to be more than just us saying, voicing our support for you. And she goes, I'm not sure I want to do that. She goes, but she goes, what you if you really wanted to help, you need to start, you know, fronting up some dollars here to show your good faith. And it's not just to, hey, let's build a new gym, or hey, let's build a track here and there. She goes, you need to invest a lot, and that investment needs to go towards the cleanup of these abandoned mine areas, and that's going to cost you millions of dollars. But it wouldn't seem right otherwise if you did not do this. So their Energy Fuels took that to heart, and they're going to, at their own expense, they're going to remove 10,000 tons of uranium bearing cleanup. Um, and these were things that are all left from the 40s and all the way through the 80s, and so it's a lot of stuff. Energy Fuels has to also provide education to support Navajo Nation's transportation safety programs, education, the environment, public health and welfare, and local economic development on the Navajo Nation relating to uranium matters. And so they're trying really hard to do their part and help Navajo Nation, you know, in this way. Man, I can't. But this is the only map I could really show. And just to let you know, like, you can look right here, you can see White Mesa Mill. That's where that's at. This gray area is Bears Ears. So you can see how close that uranium is, right? And there's uranium all around Bears Ears too. And there's other minerals uh, that industry wants to mine in these areas that go towards clean energy. Like a lot of the stuff we use for batteries and things, they're all found in here. Uh, and they're loaded up here, and people are going to want to get in here. And with the new Trump administration, his second term here, there's already talk about him changing these borders again. There's already talk about, how big this would be and how it will be protected. And so that's another concern that everyone should be aware of too. But just how close these two areas are, 4 miles. If you look it up, that's what it says. Um, so Utah, like I said, White Mesa Mill is sitting right above there. They share groundwater aquifer with White Mesa community uh, to help with the White Mesa tailing ponds. They actually pipe in water from Recapture Reservoir up here and bring it in. Mountain Ute, they had said that, if they could tap into that water from Recapture Reservoir, that, that would help them with their concerns from the groundwater they have. I remember being in a meeting once, and I remember they were testing the groundwater here and testing the groundwater in Blanding, and one of the officials was saying, like, well, the toxicity in state water, it's it's no less than the toxicity in the water in these areas, so that should be okay. And and I made the comment. I was like, well, telling people our water's just as poison as yours isn't probably a winning selling point. We're trying to get the cleanest water we can in those areas so that they can live a good life and not have to worry, at least from getting poisoned through the things that they're drinking. Especially, you've seen these around in a lot of different places, I think. And even all the way up through like Standing Rock. This became a big deal when they were trying to pass that Dakota Access Pipeline. All of Indian country got behind that. All of Indian country used that as a platform to voice their concerns about how that water is life. Water is a sacred thing. Um, Water is a human right. Every living thing needs this to live, and so the concerns about uranium are real. The concerns about fresh water are real. The concerns and and knowledge that these miners and their families have suffered and continue to suffer to this day is real. Our hope, our only hope, right, is that they do the best that they can, to stay safe. Our hope is that maybe there's something else they can use besides this, to for the needs that they have. Um, and so I share this again. I'm not trying to sway anybody here about how to believe or to affect your position on uranium and uranium usage and transportation and things. But you are all working with Native students, and especially if you're up in these urban areas, they still have family. These urban Native students living up here, they still have families on reservations that are close to these things and have these same concerns. They probably have aunts and uncles and cousins down there, grandparents still down there. And so so even if you don't work on a reservation or go to a school on a reservation, if you're on the urban areas of these places, you should be aware that this is the concern, and that cancer among Native people is high, and this is one of the big reasons for it. And so that's what I had to share with you all. I don't have a lot of information on the how Utah is going to be regulated, or how this affects their regulation of energy fuels and the transport there. It's still pretty new. We're still figuring things out, and we're trying. And I'll do my best to answer any questions, but I'm not a uranium expert. I'm just, I can deliver the information I have and share what I have. So if there's any questions, please.
Just a couple comments. It takes a combination. Well, it takes a combined effort from everybody, I think. You
Absolutely.
mentioned you mentioned the governments, Arizona and Utah, and probably New Mexico's in the mix of that too. And I think that a combined effort where it, we learn a lot more, being educated about it. There's understanding.
Mm,
Um, there's where there's one open pit mine between Window Rock and Gallup.
yeah.
It's an open pit mine. You know, that's your stomping grounds there,
Yeah.
Dustin. That closed though. But
Yeah.
as soon as that closed, you have the health effects.
Yeah.
The things that happen there. But I think the combined effort. I got a friend of mine that lives in Provo, and he's from El Jeto.
Mm,
He's affected by this, He's worked in that mine for years, and he's up into, I think he's around mid 80s now.
Wow.
But he has a cane, and he barely gets around anymore. But just talking with him, a combined effort is that he had both ends. He had the Western medicine.
Mm,
He did a lot of visitation to the hospital, especially taking that road from here to Fort Duchesne or from here back to Shiprock. He also had the native medicine, the medicine man.
mm,
And for him, like that one day we were just kind of talking about that. He says, when you have those combined efforts, it makes you feel a lot stronger. You feel a little bit more balanced. You feel a little more confident.
mm.
He says, if I did one without the other, it would be very, very difficult. So I think, the Western medicine and the traditional medicine, they all work together. But for some, that they didn't do one or the other.
Yeah.
And when they don't do one or the other, it becomes life becomes very, very difficult. So he went off on that, the disposal effects of what happens, just like what you indicated.
Mm.
Fertility for the women, for the men, it's just it just really didn't work out.
Yeah.
But those are what you were referring to. It just kind of that idea bounced back to me on that. Those combined efforts from everybody. So
Yes.
that's my
And
comment.
I was watching a documentary on the uranium on Navajo Nation once, and there were medicine men, Navajo medicine men, that said back in the day they actually used that yellow cake. They're like, when people had stomach problems or different ailments they didn't know what it was, they they'd go to these areas where this yellow sand was and this yellow clay was, and they would give little amounts to their to their patients to help them get better. And so, you know, there was this comment I saw. It said everything's a medicine and everything's a poison depending on how much you take, right? And so it's what's it fascinating about that is Navajo medicine. We're using radiation to treat different ailments for Navajo people, and that's amazing in itself that they knew how to do that and that they were aware that it could have some beneficial effects when it came to cancer and things like that. But overexposure promoted that cancer and promoted those ailments that people were going up against. But I agree. I think uh, a more holistic approach, a more involved approach from different areas can help and make people or help people get better and live long productive lives. If there are any questions, I encourage everyone just to keep reading on this, keep up with it, stay aware of it, and uh, and however you feel about it, I hope you still have concerns that it should be handled safely, and that humans and human prosperity and human well-being should probably outweigh what should be in our next iPhone or stuff like that. Let's put people up a little higher on the priority list and give more weight to that. But thank you all very much. I have to actually go to a different meeting at 10, but thank you and have a good one, guys.
All right. Thank
Happy
you,
happy
Dustin.
weekend.
Oh, okay. Very good. Enjoyed that. A lot of a lot of things that are happening there. Um, yeah, I got a comment here from Daytona Transportation. Yeah, that's not that's happening everywhere with that, where especially you have the transportation or transporting uranium, and I'm pretty sure that's happening in the Shoshone Bannock tribal reservations, um, and the tribal police trying to track this down. And just like what Dustin says, they have laws or they have guidelines and they have restrictions with the tribes also. So the tribes, just reiterating what Dustin said, they have to be invited to the table to to be involved in this conversation. So that's good. Hey, okay, let's move on. Our next presenter, Dr. Melissa Teehee from the Utah State University. So I'll give the time to her and her team, and you could just a little bit about your background and um, maybe your tribal membership too. So they give us an idea where you're coming from. Okay, you're
All
on.
right. All right. OCO. My name is Melissa Teehee. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and I am have been at Utah State University. I was looking at this for almost a decade and a few months here. But I came to Utah State to the Department of Psychology to help train more Native psychologists and folks to address mental health. And as we have been looking at sort of this holistic health and how do we sort of diversify our providers in mental health and medicine and things like that, it really starts with our K through 12 education and making sure that Native students feel included and like they belong and that it's a place that they can succeed and thrive. So that has led us to many projects thinking about education, but the one we're going to share with you today is a project that is coming to an end like this month. And we wanted to make sure we presented to you all and to get some feedback on this. So we're going to tell you about our Whose History project. And this project is a project to help us understand how Indigenous perspectives are represented in K through 12 classrooms. So we are an interdisciplinary team of Indigenous and non-Indigenous researchers, educators, designers, and community leaders, really seeking to figure out better ways to present Native American curricula in classrooms. And so this is our team here. So I'm Melissa, but I'll let Brianne and Kendon introduce themselves.
Thanks, Melissa. So I'm Brianne Letts. I think we've had the chance to present to you all a couple times now, and we've had the chance to work with you on this project or some of our other projects. But if I haven't got to meet you yet, I'm an associate professor at Utah State University in instructional technology and learning sciences. So I study how people learn, how to design technologies to help them learn, and work with various community partners to do that work. So I'm also originally from Tacoma, Washington, which is important to me to share as well. And I'll pass it off to Kendon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kendon Quayle, and I was born and raised in Murray, Utah. I went up to Utah State University, where I got my Master's of Arts in Instructional Technology and Learning Sciences. And it was there where I met Melissa and Brianne, and since then I've become a project coordinator on a few of their projects, including Braiding Knowledge and the Whose History project. And at Utah State, I really learned that I love working with people to capture their stories through different technologies, and that's what's brought me here today. So it's nice to meet you all and see some of you guys again, and yeah.
All right, so I've given you a little bit of an overview of how the project came to be and the purpose, but I just want to sort of give you an overview of where we sought some of this information and knowledge from. So we included perspectives from K through 12 teachers, tribal educators and knowledge holders, Native families, so Title VI families, students, but really their whole families, in sharing circles, trying to understand more about the current curriculum and what's happening in classrooms and what the ideal would look like from all of these different perspectives. So to start, we surveyed 117 4th through 6th grade teachers in Utah. And while we asked a lot of questions and got a lot of knowledge, we're just going to give you sort of the main takeaways from each of these phases of the project. So one of the things we talked about were things that were sort of at the district level with teachers. And so while many questions were involved in this, the two major takeaways I have are thinking about school districts. Only 10% of respondents said their school district required any sort of Native American curricula or them to teach about Native Americans, which we were asking 4th through 6th grade teachers. So we expected that number to be a lot higher. And one thing that they talked about is that only 3% of the teachers said that they had any sort of related professional development opportunities from the district. So anything related to Native American history or stories or understanding or perspective. So not very many folks were aware of even any opportunities. And so we also asked teachers what would help them feel more comfortable. And teachers had said access to accurate representation and lessons that include Native American perspectives and experiences was important to them. And they needed that. They didn't feel like that was something they had. They also said they wanted more professional development because they wanted to be able to learn more themselves before they taught these things in the classroom. And they noted wanting a backing by education administration. So thinking about their schools, but the school district or having some of these lessons or things that were approved by districts or the state due to a lot of the political concerns that are even have ramped up more recently since we asked teachers these questions. So we asked what teachers were doing in the classrooms and sort of what they were focused on. And we asked how often they integrate Native American histories or perspectives into their instruction. And 2/3 said rarely to never, and about 1/3 said occasionally. But when we asked specific to if they're integrating anything about current or contemporary issues affecting Native American people or communities, that number of occasionally drops down to 12%. In the questions we asked the teachers, all the teachers, 100% of the teachers agreed that an interest in students' culture is important for building student trust and feeling of belonging in the classroom. And we're asking about all students, right? Not just Native students. Yet 2/3 of the teachers reported not incorporating these things into their curriculum. And sort of maybe the reason behind this is that a majority of teachers said they were not confident they could find accurate resources for teaching, and they didn't want to just go find anything on the internet because they didn't know if that would be accurate. So from there, we decided to look at sort of the lesson plans and resources posted on all of the school districts in the state of Utah on their websites and things like that were shared, focusing on Native American history, Native American curricula, literature, anything in that arena. And what we found, we coded all of these resources. Most of the listed resources were made by third parties, so potentially a company or somebody, but all out of state. And not necessarily being made by educators in the classroom or tribal members or sort of anything more local. What we found is of those resources that mentioned Native peoples and American Indians, They mostly shared a pioneering explorer or settler perspective and not a Native perspective. But of the Native perspectives that were shared, the majority of those came from the We Shall Remain curriculum. There wasn't a lot of like deviation from that curriculum, and we will share that because they're great resources, but there is more. An overview of the resources is 2/3 of the resources sort of talked about Native culture or lifestyle in some way, but only 1/3 mentioned anything about Native people existing today. So I'll turn it over to Kendon to talk about the family sharing circles that we did.
Yeah, so in addition to what we learned from the teacher surveys and the resources, we wanted to make sure to gain a fuller picture. So we also wanted to hear the perspectives of Native students and their families. So to do that, we held a sharing circle to learn more about their experiences of what students are learning in the classroom, how this affects them, and things that they might want to learn. So during the sharing circle, we asked 2 questions. The first question that we asked them was, what have you learned in school? So everyone in the circle shared their answers, but there were a few overlapping responses and themes that arose. So the first was that many students recalled learning limited historical perspectives. They recalled learning about the colonies or Christopher Columbus and other broad topics and historical events like that. The second thing that came up quite a bit was that they would learn about Native Americans through typical projects like posters and presentations. And so they would often be assigned a particular tribe or a region of the US for these projects. But this was something that a lot of people brought up. Finally, having a teacher that cared about teaching Native perspectives had a great impact on those who had that experience. Having a teacher that was knowledgeable and showed interest in their culture was really important for folks. The second question that we asked the group was, what would you like to learn? So again, the entire group answered this question, and there are a few common threads to their responses. Many people wanted the opportunity to go more in depth in teaching Native perspectives, and an example of that was taking time to include these perspectives outside of special times or months, such as Native American Heritage Month in November, or only teaching these perspectives around Thanksgiving. And they also wanted more topics to be shared. So this includes music, Native values, food, languages, arts, clothing, and Indigenous science. There were many people in the sharing circle who wanted to highlight Indigenous innovations and inventions. And with that, a main theme that arose with this second question was a wish for more modern perspectives to be shared in the classroom. They wanted people to know that they still exist. So this leads us into a summer workshop that we held in July of 2024. So during this workshop, we brought together a group of education researchers, tribal educators and knowledge holders, and K-12 educators for a 2-day in-depth summer workshop where, as a collective, we reviewed current curriculum and pedagogy and worked to identify ideal curriculum and pedagogy. So during this time, we all had the opportunity to share things that we have done and worked on and programs that have worked in the past. And we also took the time to brainstorm some pathways forward. So during the workshop and through some of the post-workshop work, we came to 3 threads that folks wanted to work on moving forward. The first was providing resources. So this includes curating existing resources as well as creating new resources. And this is in part to support educators by providing accurate resources that they feel comfortable and confident in using. The second takeaway was needing to support teachers, which includes cultivating communities of cultural growth, as well as providing educational and professional development opportunities to them. Finally, everyone who participated in the workshop and filled out our post-workshop survey expressed an interest in creating more spaces where people can come together. So this is that final thread of community development. This is where people would like to cultivate partnerships between educators, tribal knowledge holders, and communities. One additional thing that we learned through this workshop was the importance of having and teaching values. as well as creating experiences that will be long lasting and are more likely to be remembered. So this is also something that we discovered while creating a digital learning experience that Brianne is going to share a little bit more about soon. But we just wanted to give a few moments if there are any thoughts, questions, or things that people are feeling.
Hey, just a thought. I think this information that you're giving us, I think it's a good foundation. And my thought is that um, I think a lot of these teachers would like to teach the perspective from the American Indian. And I think a lot of them are willing to. I think that sometimes, looking at the curriculum from the state, there are spots where certain subject topics should be taught, but oftentimes that the teacher skips that because the lack of knowledge. There's a lack of somewhere. And I think that we as educators, we miss that boat, but we can get back on the boat as to how to do that. I think that, after, and, I've been in 3 states, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah as an administrator. And I spent most of my time on the Navajo Reservation as an administrator. And there we had curriculum dealing with American Indian history. Um, and I think that, you know, if we were to compare Utah with Arizona, where, the Navajo Reservation, you would find that there's going to be possibly a significant difference in terms of curriculum. On the reservation, yeah, they do teach, the history and American Indian history and, the government functions. And then you get off the reservation and we're looking for that. And I think that's where we can mend that fence. So I think I'm thinking about the willingness for these teachers to learn. I think maybe this project can take one step farther, and next year bring in a group of teachers from all over the state and feed them American Indian history. It's like, those teachers are going to be feeling like drinking from a fire hydrant. That's going to be a lot of information, but I think at least that's a start. But that's just kind of my thought as to what I see now. So anyway, anybody else would like to say anything out there?
I would.
Yes, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. I had the opportunity to go to Rose Park here in Salt Lake City. And I went to a school and taught about powwow music and how um, just talked about the different styles of song and the drum beat. And I was so uh, excited to teach this and nervous, but I was so appreciative of the teacher to reach out to a tutor, and he contacted me and asked if I would like to give a presentation. And so I thought that was really cool because the teacher was willing to have a native person come in to talk about the music, and she was a music teacher herself. And so I gave an hour presentation, and the kids seemed really to they were engaged, and so I thought that was awesome. And just going back to when I worked with Head Start in Fort Hall, Idaho, we did have a couple teachers who were non-native, and we attended the Northwest Indian Head Start Coalition conference, and they attended. And I thought it was neat that they attended and they learned about how Native culture is in our everyday lives. and so they learned a lot. And I think maybe supporting those non-native teachers who are willing to learn about the native culture so that they can teach it properly in the classrooms is to give them resources such as attending conferences, native conferences, so they can get more of that one-on-one, and then also networking with other tribal educators. I think that would be a good thing to have.
Well, one thing you shared there about like that, you going into the classroom, like those are experiences that students
Mhm.
remember over some of the actual like facts and things like that. And I think that's one thing that repeatedly came up in the summer workshop and things, is how important those actual experiences are.
Mhm. One thing I just want to mention is I actually live in Rose Park, so if you're ever in the neighborhood again, I'd be happy to connect with you in real life.
I think, Caitlin?
Um, oh, yeah, that would be great. We can connect and see what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have Caitlin and Brenda.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, hi. Yeah, my name's Caitlin, and I'm with the Jordan School District in the Title VI program. And first of all, thank you so much. This presentation was awesome because this is one of our main goals for this year, is because we have found so many teachers that just don't feel comfortable presenting information. And so we actually have started a whole new like survey. Like if you want us to come to your classroom to present, we are more than happy to do that. And we actually just had our first one yesterday. So I see that someone already mentioned it in the chat, because I was going to ask if you have any more resources available to us, or professional development, or I would love to connect in person. I'm in South Jordan, but I'm an Aggie, so I love Utah State, so I'm always willing to travel. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and if there's any information or resources we can use to better our process and our presentations, I would love it, because this is such an important thing, especially with all the craziness that's going on right now. Just being able to give information so that people can feel empowered, and I think it's huge. So thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to add, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
great.
Okay, hi, my name is Brenda Whitehorse, and I'm with San Juan School District. I'm the Heritage Language Director there. And we do have a lot of resources on our Native American education page. So if you need any resources, you can go to our page. And then also, if you want to connect with me, I'm available via email, as well as my webpage. So you can contact me through either both. And I just think that creating culturally responsive materials and instruction for Native American students is so critical, especially in today's society because of all the things that are going on. So yeah, thank you for the information and the presentation, and you're more than welcome to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, both Caitlin and Brenda. Sorry, Melissa, are you going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was trying to find, I'm not great with meetings, or whatever the Teams. I'm great with meetings, just I don't know Teams well. I was trying to find y'all again. Brenda, we are putting some resources together on a page to share with folks here. Can we put your website on there? I have it, but I just wanted permission to include it on just a list of resources.
Yes, you are more than welcome to use the resources that we have on our webpage. We also have activities for our students. We just had our Knowledge Bowl that was 7th through 12th grade. And then this upcoming week on Thursday, we're going to have our K-6 language fair. So those are the two things that are coming up. And and you're more than welcome to attend any of those things if you're in the area. Then we also have our Heritage Language Conference, and that usually happens in the fall.
Awesome.
So
Perfect.
around September.
Um, I'm just gonna, because I think this is gonna create more generative discussion and some of the work that we have been doing in terms of building the resources. Is it okay if I share this and then we can continue the discussion, or does someone have something?
Yeah, I think there's another person. That's Totona. She has her hand up.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to share what I do at the Urban Indian Center here located in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm a member of the Northern Ute tribe and my band is Uncompahgre. And so I'm the family programs coordinator. And so what my job is that I teach a youth cultural class Tuesday nights here at the Urban Indian Center. And we talk about different tribes and such. I'll give you an example. Okay, so we talked about dream catchers, and I explained the history of the dream catcher, what tribe it came from, and what was the purpose of using the dream catcher, and also explained that it's not a item that is used like a novelty. It's
Mhm.
more like it has a purpose, but since it came out across the country, even in other countries, that it's lost its meaning because you can buy a dream catcher in a gas station somewhere in like New York, and there's a dream catcher, but that doesn't have an explanation to it of why it's here. And so I just talk about the history of the different things we make, let them know what tribe it came from, acknowledging those tribes, and just sharing and teaching them. One thing I've noticed is that our kids who are born and raised in an urban setting often are not aware of other tribes and such as powwows. So another example, we have a couple kids who do dance in powwows, and one of the girls is a jingle dress dancer, and she had bag that she uses, and I told her, do you know where the your parfetch bag or your bandolier bag came from? And she's like, no, I just wear it because I see jingle dress dancers wear it. And I said, okay. So we did a class on the Ojibwe style bags, and we talked about the bags and what tribe it came from, and who normally wore the bags were the men. And um, and we talked about how it was a status, and somehow it got into the powwow circle and people started using it during powwow dances and wearing it, and we said women could wear it as well, but it was more the men just um, talking about what their stature within the tribe. So that's one of the things that I do here. I just feel it's important that we're all aware. And going back to Rose Park and Head Start, I became more aware of advocating to have us be knowledgeable of not just only certain tribes, but all tribes and other nations. And so what helped me was that I had families from other countries in my class. And I thought that was awesome. And I had a family from Africa who had a little boy who was only 5 years old, and he knew his language and he knew where his family came from, what part of Africa. And I was just like, wow, that's awesome to be knowledgeable about other countries and learning from a little guy. And so, yeah. But I put my information on the chat. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'm another resource as well. And I look forward to connecting with you all and working together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'm gonna get sidetracked because some of what you're sharing, we have like another research project looking at kids' cultural development and engaging with some of the learning experiences I'm gonna share with you right now. And so there's a lot of synergies and things to talk about. But Melissa, do you have anything to say before I continue? I think I interrupted you. Okay. So I'm just going to show an example of the kinds of things that our team, sorry, can you go back just a second? That our team is kind kind of what I was saying earlier in terms of like studying how people learn, building technologies to help people learn, and working with communities to kind of create those learning experiences. So this is in response to the data that we just shared, which was funded by the Spencer Foundation. And this project that I'm going to share with you is funded by the National Science Foundation. And so this is just one example. Now you can go next. Thanks, Kendon. It's called the Pemmican Experience. And so I'm gonna maybe we can play the first minute or so. I don't know if the sound will come through. It's coming through.
It is time that we need to start putting pemmican together. To make pemmican, we will need to collect 3 ingredients: Duke, Duva, and Dornamp. Will you help me collect these ingredients? Wonderful.
So yeah, we could just mute it and we'll just let it play. It's a little choppy because the internet in general. But the sort of premise for this experience is, you know, like has been shared amongst the group already, these classroom experiences of you all and other tribal educators going into classrooms to engage with kids around their own history, their own communities, all these things, is a really important experience. And so one of the questions that we've been exploring is how can we use technology to help steward that knowledge in a broader way that still honors the knowledge that's being shared itself as well. And so this specific experience was made in partnership with a Shoshone tribal knowledge holder, Darren Perry, who goes into classrooms and teaches about pemmican as a food source and the history around it. And this kind of captures that knowledge. And he still kind of goes into these classrooms, but it's a little bit of a premise that the teachers can use that's created by a tribal knowledge holder or tribal educator. And so they can be a little bit more confident, especially for the non-native teachers, that what they're sharing has already been sort of designed with the knowledge holders that sort of need to be participating in that decision, that's designed with them. And so the knowledge that's being shared is in the technology, in the learning experience, and takes a little bit of that pressure off the teachers. And so this is kind of like an interactive story game kind of experience. It's pretty structured, so it is a little bit more of an interactive story. I think kids perceive it, as you can see, there's like, you can explore the world a little bit. And so it has some sort of game mechanics involved in it. But essentially they go around and collect the 3 different ingredients that are going to be put together to make pemmican, and then they bring them back to the community, and the sort of gift that's given back is this story about why this food and the knowledge around why the pemmican is so important and where it came from and all these things. And so we've been this is a pilot. This is like if you're into technology, it's like the alpha version, even though it looks so polished. But we're polishing this up and doing sort of like a really final-ish, as much as you can be final in tech development, in the first week of March, just to get all the rest of the bugs and things out. And then the goal is that by summer, this will be available on the App Store to download across different platforms. And as well, I think maybe it's the next slide, the resources from the teachers. Yeah, thanks, Kendon. Sorry, I skipped ahead. As well, the teachers that we've been working with have created, I think, something like 17 different types of curricular unit that align with their standards. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm like, that align with the standards that they need to teach in the classroom, but allow them to kind of explore different ways around PEMICAN, but also the different values that we're centering in this learning experience, which are reciprocity and kinship. And so these sort of teacher guide will also be available when we make the actual learning experience available. And then, Kenan, did I miss something back, or did I just talk through it while the thing? Great. So, and then the last slide is just showing you some of the, like, so when the tribal knowledge holder actually, he still came to the classroom, he visits the school every year, but instead of sort of starting from a place of educating kids about like his community and what PEMICAN is and all these things, they had the opportunity, A, the kids already knew some of the Shoshone language needed, like of the different ingredients, and B, like they were able to make, he brought these grinding stones and they were able to make the PEMICAN and kind of do some of their own exploration. And so it changed the way that he was able to engage with the classroom and the students as well. Just going back to that idea of having these like really rich experiences being really important for kids remembering and understanding the significance of these different knowledges and the different cultures that that you all and in this case Darren Perry is sharing with these classrooms. Melissa, Kenan, do you have anything to add?
Just that I'm excited to do it again. I'm excited to see another round of sixth graders experience it in a different way and see how it goes.
And so we're doing this with sixth grade teachers because those are the teachers we've had partnership with for quite a long time, and they've been on their own. They're not Native and they've been on their own sort of cultural development journey as well. They're really excited to work with other non-Native teachers to help them steward Indigenous knowledge and perspectives in their classrooms in respectful ways. And so that in connection to the professional development comment is part of what we're looking at as well for non-Native teachers across the state to be able to do this well. Yeah, this information, we can open it up for questions and a little bit more discussion if anyone has one. I think this website gives a little bit more information about this project as well as the form to stay in touch with us is on this website as well, or you can scan the QR code and it will take you directly to the form, I believe. Oh, what I was going to say was that part of the invitation here is that we want to keep making more resources. It seems like from the data, you know, there's a lot of great resources out there, and there's a lot of opportunities to create new ones that are made and led and designed by the tribal knowledge holders or tribal educators that want to share really any kind of knowledge. And so this was a game, but we also can do like virtual reality experiences, augmented reality experiences, physical like books. We've done kinds of all building resources. We're just really trying to expand available resources for teachers to teach and represent Indigenous knowledge in their classrooms.
Any feedback or anything you all want to share with us as we're sort of thinking about going forward?
Have you guys done a lot of presentations to schools or to school staff or to students?
No, partly because the one we did last summer was Eileen Quintana does professional development in her district, and the summer was with them. And the first question they asked was, "Where can I get this?" The Pemmican experience. So we're waiting until we can help them download it and make sure that they actually have access to some of these, at least a starting point.
Do you have resources that are available now, or is this just kind of your first big project?
Yeah, we have Melissa, do you want to talk about the we have curated the resources. There we go.
Yeah, we have just a list of resources that are just clickable links that people have shared, all of the folks that we've talked to and things that they use, or that I use when I teach undergrads. And so there are these are not our resources by any means. I mean, they're ours as like a community, but we did not create these. We're trying to put together some of this to share back with you all. But yeah, we will be back in the classrooms in like 3 weeks to do the reiterated version of this. And I think one of the takeaways from some of this is like, in this political climate of questioning whether we should teach other perspectives or consider different cultures, which as a psychologist, by the way, is good for everybody and improves everybody's cultural identity when they learn about all cultures, their own and others. But one of the things is like teaching from values. And so from the first version that you just saw to the version of the Pemmican experience we're going to do in 3 weeks is really highlighting the values of kinship, reciprocity, and community. Those are the values that Darren really wanted to make sure to share with students and that they really took away from this. So we are, I think, sharing from values is a thing that people generally agree with in the state of Utah. And so it's so far been a really good approach. But yes, you are like our first audience of sort of sharing these things outwardly. But yeah, we'll be ramping that up over the summer. But we wanted to get feedback before we start going to classrooms and that kind of thing. So
I'll add too that we do have several other curricular units that these teachers have been working on. That, I mean, we've been working with them on them for about 5 or 6 years. And those, I think, will also be getting dropped this summer. And when that happens, I mean, you can fill out the form and we'll make sure you're first to know. And then if you have ideas about where we should go, how we can get this in front of, students and teachers, or how we can equip you all if having a template presentation is available, if you all want to kind of share it and have your own spins in your districts, we're happy to create whatever resources so that it's not dependent on us to show up everywhere either, that we can do this together.
Monica had a comment, or Monica?
Hi, yes, I'm Monica Gill from Ogden School District. Just a comment. So within Utah, right, the curriculum for Native American history starts in 7th grade. So I'm not surprised by the data that you have collected, the 10%. But curious if this is something that could also be shared with junior highs to enhance their curriculum that they're required to teach on Native American histories.
The Pemmican experience?
Just any of the resources that you're building upon.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working, I think the 3 of us are not teachers. So we really rely on you all, and let us know if you need support or resources to kind of know how to adapt the different experiences that we create for the particular ages. the Pemmican experience itself is going to be from 4th grade, and I mean adults will learn from it as well. So I think the actual like digital learning experience, interactive narrative, can be an anchor for all types of lessons, and that's kind of how we approach all of our technology design or various resources as well, to make sure that it's not just useful for like one grade level. Am I answering your question?
Yes, no, and I also really appreciate the way you're connecting it to their required standards, because I think that is a big part of the reason why we don't see a lot of culturally responsive curriculum, is because they are required to teach the standards, right, that are set before them from the state. And so I think being able to connect those to those standards is a great idea. So I appreciate you guys doing that.
Well, and I think connected to what Dusty was sharing, you know, one of the experiences we've sort of created are a variety of different versions of looking at bears ears and like trying to do perspective taking through that. This is something that the teachers created, and we helped curate resources for them and things. And so that's something that they were doing in 6th grade because they had an interest in it. But like 7th grade is debate, learning about debate or things. And so you could do like a fishbowl type debate or something where you are like hearing everybody out. It doesn't have to be quite as contentious, depending on what values you're trying to put forth, but seeing that perspective taking. And those are some more of the lessons that we'll have out in the next, 2 or 3 months. So. All right. Well, if there's no other things, I just want to say how much we appreciate you all and the work that you're doing, and how hard the day-to-day can feel right now for all of us, and just really appreciate all of you continuing to do the work.
And I just have a quick announcement that promised Eileen that we would share. So part of the work that we're presenting is part of the Community Learning Around Sharing and Partnership initiative. We're having a film festival. Eileen couldn't be here, but Anna is here. I'm going to toss it over to her to invite you all to join us on the 24th.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we are so excited to host this event in collaboration with CLASP. We have actually been working with CLASP for over a year now, almost getting closer to 2 years. And we have loved the collaboration. The CLASP team is so good with kids, and they are engaging, they're patient, they're so kind. So we're excited for this event. This event will be on Monday, February 24th. And we're going to start with a red carpet event. So we are going to have the students. What was that? We are going to have the students dress in their traditional.
This other one.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
No, I think if you could mute yourself, and let's have Alicia continue.
So we have invited and encouraged our students and the people who are going to be in the audience to wear their traditional Native clothing, like a ribbon skirt or a ribbon shirt or whatever their tribe is. We're just asking them to dress semi-formal, and we are kind of thinking that we want the theme of the night to be like the Grammys or the Oscars, where we are literally going to have a red carpet. We're going to have the kids get their pictures taken, almost like where they're paparazzi, because they have been working so hard on these digital stories. And we are so excited to showcase them to our school district, but then also to our community. So you are all invited. We wanted to personally invite each and every one of you. This is going to take place at Spanish Oaks Elementary. I will put the address in the chat. We have about 30 digital stories that have been submitted. We have let the students be creative and passionate about the stories they're creating. So some of the stories are modernized, where they have the stories about like football or animation. We also have stories about culture. We have stories about like pinyon picking. We have live film stories, personal narratives, and the students are going to be showcased during the night to their parents and community members. We will have student vendors there as well, selling their homemade native crafts and arts. That will be from 5 p.m. to 6, and then they'll sell again from 8 to 8:30. Also, our students have been practicing some dances. So they're going to share some dances and some songs that they have been working on for the last few weeks. So we are super excited about this event. We, just to kind of let you know the schedule, 5:30, we're going to start the red carpet. Anybody is welcome to come and see these students walk in and get seated. About 6 o'clock, we're going to start sharing the digital stories. And then we're going to have a keynote speaker. We're so excited to have James be our keynote speaker. He is an Indigenous filmmaker. You probably all have heard of him. He's worked with National Geographic. He works with the class team. We're so excited to bring him in because we love our students to see positive role models so they can see what their future can be like. So we are super excited for our students to hear James speak. And then we'll continue on with the program. We'll share some more digital stories, and then sprinkled in it, we're going to have some songs and dances. We're going to have a drum group. So it should be a wonderful event, and we wanted to invite you all to join us. Everyone is welcome. You can share this flyer with your organizations. This is a free event, and we're just so excited to host it. Does anybody have any questions about the event? Okay, I'm going to leave our website here in the chat with the more information about the event. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Anybody else would like to add a comment or two or question? If not, I'd like to thank the team from USU. Dr. T, thank you for your team and a lot of information that you've given to us. A lot of things to think about. I think that's, I think the second thing I like to say is that, I'm glad that you have the tribal knowledge involved in this process. I think with the former chairman of the tribe, especially with him being involved in this whole thing, and the the tribal lifestyle. It gives credit to your research project. This is not coming from excuse the language, but the white. It's coming from the native knowledge base. So, and I'm looking forward to I guess to continue this and to see where it goes. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments, let's move on. I don't know if Clayton is on or not. And what I was gonna ask him, I know that he's really, really busy this week. I was gonna ask him to do a follow-up on all the Neville language in the government class that's being offered. If not, then hopefully, he'll get the information to me, and what I'll do is I'll send it out. And the Urban Indian Center is Penelope on.
No,
Okay.
she is not here today.
She's not here today.
Mhm.
Are you pitch hitting for her, or are you? Yeah.
I don't know. She didn't let me know.
Okay. Monica, you have your hand up. Is that from the last, or is this new? I guess it's all okay. And updates. Anybody have any updates that you'd like to share with the group? I'm just going to add just one little update that I have. We started this conversation with starting the government class for the Paiute. I had a meeting with him a couple of weeks ago, and that meeting went really well. Bringing the tribal leaders and their educational arm, as well as the cultural people there, and Iron School District and their administration. Our next step is to bring in Washington School District and Sevier School District, and we're going to start this conversation in terms of developing it's going to be its context, things that's going to be taught, and some of the other logistics that go with that. So it's just a kind of a step by step, and hopefully we'll have all this information to begin the class in the fall. So that's our goal right now. And this is also being supported by USBE, the Social Studies Department. So it's just one thing that I think the tribe would like to have that class to be taught to not only their tribal members, but to everybody. So that's the only update I have. If anybody have any updates out there? Okay,
Carol, I
Charlene,
have a
you
question. Yeah, hi.
sure.
I have a
Oh,
question. Navajo tribe, they're coming out with a Navajo government on instruction book. And I'm wondering, have you heard anything about it?
no, I don't. Probably Clayton does, because a lot of the information that Clayton has with his government class, it's a parallel to the Navajo tribe, and they have the information that he's receiving from the information that he's teaching comes from the tribal recommendation. So
Okay. Yeah,
he would
what I heard was that they're working on it and they're going to try and distribute it out to the schools so that the school can teach it. That's what I heard.
Yeah, on the tribe Navajo reservation, that's you know, I remember at the junior high, middle school, that was required. You get up to the high school, it's an option, it's an elective. So I'm pretty sure that what they're saying is probably in the books in terms of getting the information out to the schools. So, I can ask also, and let you guys know how that whole thing's going to work out. And I think Clayton probably has a better answer than I do, but I'll do a follow up on that. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
okay. And Monica, did you have your hands raised?
Yes. Actually, this is more of a request. So we are just trying to plan our end of the year celebration, trying to get ahead of it, and just wondering if anybody has Any recommendations for performers? We've utilized Honey, who is amazing, and also Native Hoops to come out. But if you have any other recommendations, just wondering if we could share those about. I would really appreciate it.
Okay. And I think Rhonda's a very good resource. I think, she's around the powwow circuit, as well as her speaking engagements involving these activities at the Urban Indian Center. So, um, I mean, usually that's my go-to person.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment or update in your areas? It's a really trying time for everybody. The news coming out. It's rocky. It's going to be rocky for a while, I think. And a lot of the answers I don't know. I think even USPE doesn't know. It's just going to come down the pike, and it's going to happen in terms of especially the educational arm in DC with the elementary and secondary ed programs. But that's going to probably end up in the court system. So that's just what I know. Brooklyn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a small update. I was able to take my kids to Antelope Island and show them that state park. We had a wonderful ranger give us lots of knowledge, and she was so passionate. It was awesome. And we were able to see several bald eagle, and we saw some owls, and we were able to get really close to the buffalo, which was just so special. So I just wanted to share that event that we had in the last few weeks, and it really turned out well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Anybody else? Well, it's a couple minutes to 11 o'clock. And again, I appreciate you guys, your participation, and I thank you for your attendance, and I thank you for what you do for your students, your school district, your schools, and your program. So I'm going to be signing off, and our next meeting is March the 14th next month, and hopefully to see everybody there again. So, hey, thanks guys. Thank you, people.